Good afternoon. Welcome to the Board of Assessors meeting on September 18th. We tape our own meetings, and LCAT is also taping our meeting, and no one else is present to tape our meetings. First order of business is to review the minutes of August 21st. Bill Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, I have reviewed the minutes as of the open and executive sessions as of to form and content. I find them acceptable, and I move that they be approved.
Second.
All those in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, open session. We're gonna move things around. So we're gonna start off with the Bishop and Associates discussing our values for fiscal year 2019.
When we started, you have a sheet in front of you which details all of your beginning assessment sale ratios. As you are well aware, our major tool here is comparing open market transactions, their actual assessments with the sale prices. And of note, your single family homes seem to have appreciated in value somewhere about 6%. Again, dealing with an average, not specific properties. And then when we further broke the beginning assessment sale ratio studies down, you'll notice a very tight range of median assessment to sale ratios that indicate that pretty much an increase across the board for single family and multifamily homes is warranted, but there is no increase required for commercial industrial property or land in general. So proceeding on that basis, we changed the building cost tables, depreciation rate tables, and some size adjustment curves for single family, all residential property, single family mostly, but also twos and three families. And as a result of those changes, I will refer you to this report, which comes right off of Gateway, which shows you the final assessment sale ratios by property classes for valid sales. And scanning quickly through this, you will see that your 101 median is now at 95, your 102s are at 98. Your condos also didn't seem to require much of a change.
You didn't mention condos. I was gonna.
So actually they came down a point. 104s are at 98, there was only one sale. And land is at 98, which is where it began, as was commercials and the one industrial sale, which is indicative of very little. So with that, you have certifiable numbers, according to the Department of Revenue, to whom we must all answer. And with that, and the changes that were made on a global basis, I will refer you to this sheet, which is entitled East Long Meadow Value Comparison After Table Changes. And why this is a very true picture of the overall percent changes by property classes, because the original column here, which is titled Growth LA4 Values, is what your town total values were starting with fiscal 18 values, plus or minus whatever data changes or assessment changes were made as a result of the cyclical inspections or new growth property inspections. So this is a clear picture of exactly what your percent changes are by property class as a result of the table changes that were made. So as you can see all the way out to the far side, 101s on average, a 3.7% increase. Condos with a 0.5% decrease. Miscellaneous properties, which you only have 10, would be a catch-all for the odd mobile home that exists in town or whatever else exists out there. 2.69%. Your two families, 5.23%. Your 105s at 5.3%. Your 7 apartments, small apartments, up 4.85%. Your industrials, 1/3% increase in the commercials at 1/3%. Your industrials at less than 1/10% decrease, and the mixed use at less than 1%. One of the reasons I think that you get a little bit bigger increase in your multifamilies is because we changed only building tables. So in those instances with a very smaller land value, more emphasis is placed on the total assessment, with the building values and the building cost changes affected them a little more dramatically. But again, within the range that we had talked about for value increases.
It shows there was 30 land sales, 9 arm's length, so, but it just stayed basically
The same,
even,
the flat.
huh? Nothing at all.
Nope.
Okay. Now, just for out listening, originally you said you had an increase of about 6%. Now you're saying almost 4%.
That was the net result. That was the net result of all of the table changes.
Okay.
You set a target,
Yeah.
and you change software parameters in essence to get to that target. But there's no guarantee that you're going to exactly that increase. And what you have without changing land, in a lot of communities, if we're looking at an increase, we would change both the land and the building tables, some number to get up to it. Because we did not change land, and land is probably a 30 or 40% component of the typical residential property in town, with that staying static, you didn't get the percent of increase overall that we got by just increasing the building tables.
And Bishop and Associates did some inspections of about how many properties?
Oh God, I don't remember how many we did. Roughly 2,000.
And so that would be included in all this evaluation?
That is correct.
It's all part of this?
And that's why this actually, a clearer picture of where your percent changes are, if you go to the last handout that we have, and it's titled LA4 Comparison Report. This report actually compares last year's totals to this year's totals,
Right.
and it would be inclusive of growth increases, and you will see that the average increase for single-family homes is on the range of 4.3% on the column all the way out to the right-hand side.
Okay.
So you're going to get some differences. We didn't adjust outbuildings, so if you had a property with a very large detached garage, some sheds and a pool, their percent of increase would probably be a little bit less than that, which just has a house and land.
And no changes on the depreciation tables?
We added to the depreciation table only because a house, without making an adjustment, a house that was built in 2016 would have 0% depreciation. Now by changing the date of appraisal, if you will, to 2018, that house will now get 1% depreciation.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, we discussed about depreciation tables. They're a little light on the high end, like that.
And I think that can be more addressed if we
Yeah,
found
down
it
the
was
road.
warranted when we do the full recertification, where we have to change every single component
Yeah,
of the assessment.
we'll have to break that down someday. But not for this valuation, no, definitely not.
And when you say inspections, were those just drive-by, outside? You went in 2,000 homes?
no, I wish we had. A lot
all
of
right.
people are not home.
Some in, some out.
Yeah,
So
it
it's-
would vary. And,
Yeah.
you know, in trying to do this in a cost-effective manner, if we go up to 1950s ranch, that is, you know, you can tell it has none. It's 5 rooms, 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths. There's not mysteriously going to appear 4 baths in it. And we have such a large volume of property sales in this community, or property askings, so you always have the ability to check
Right.
with the MLS, which,
Comps. Yep.
you know, generally speaking, they get the bathroom counts right. But the other thing is, in doing any cyclical inspection program, 90+% of your property value is in property detail, which is viewable from the exterior. So we're basing a lot of this on basic square foot of living area and story height. And then yes, we'd like to get all 100% correct, but if you have plaster walls instead of drywall, that might make a 0.5% difference in assessed value. So yes, we want to be correct, but there are some items of data which just aren't worth chasing in what is considered to be mass appraisal. So, which
And these values now have to be approved before it's for the public? Of course.
It's really for the Department of Revenue.
Right.
The
Yeah.
only time that they have to be approved by the public is when we're in a recertification year.
I mean, for the public. And
Oh, yes.
when they'll be ready for the public.
So our next step would be that, the board needs to take a little bit more
Yep.
time to review. The statistics are the statistics. We are within the range that the Department of Revenue requires, and we can validate all of the sales that fall within that range. We're in that 5% of our major class, which is our single-family homes, of all other classes. So statistically, for a mass appraisal, it all works. At this point, the board would be required to sign off on the LA3, which is the sales report, which both myself and Roy has gone through to make sure that everything is correct. We will also need you to sign off on the LA15, which is the interim adjustment. Those would need to be uploaded and submitted to the Department of Revenue. Then Boston will look at it, and they will call me with any questions if they have any questions to validate anything. We also have to get our LA4, which is our total valuations, which all of this resulted from, on the Department of Revenue's website. But that doesn't have to happen this very moment. There still
Right.
may be a few little
Yeah, we
items.
still got to talk about a couple things. Yep.
And then once the LA4 is approved or signed and uploaded, I do have to upload the new growth document. Have not even started that yet because this was
Yep.
quite a bit.
All right. Great job, Roy. Thank you.
And one other
Any other questions for Roy?
No,
All right.
unless you have a question about this. I'd like to talk about the issue we had with determining conditions on houses for cyclical inspections. As an aside, because you had questions, I would have preferred that you had called me in and that we had done at least a sample review of the properties that you had questions on.
Yeah.
Is we're going out there with an eye, specifically with mostly one data collector, for consistency. And now we can all agree or disagree on what a condition should be, but we looked at it with an unbiased and hopefully consistent eye. I would have preferred that you had said, well, we have a question here, and taken properties that you had questions on back out into the field to verify whether or not we were right or not. And moving forward, because that's now all done, before we begin the next round of cyclical inspections, I did sit down with Diane and with the data collector, Alan, and we did go through what we considered to be physical changes that would affect the condition. Targeted 3 specific items. Roofs, which really are not a major issue of mass appraisal, but siding and windows. In my opinion, as we've done in other communities, that if we come to a property and all 3 of those things are apparently newer, not necessarily new, have not been picked up, that we would go up 1 complete grade or verify a good grade on those properties, which is what we did. If that's not how the board wants to operate, again, with hard data, I like to sit down before we start our next round of cyclical inspections and come to a conclusion so that you have faith in the consistency of the product that we are returning to you. Okay? So rather than do piecemeal, as was done at the end of this project, let's go out and take a look-see.
Right.
Okay? Because I'm not saying we're right, but I also don't think we're wrong 100 times.
Yeah.
So, fair
I mean,
enough?
I
know you did a precursory one.
we did not go up 2 grades is what we did at this moment.
I understand that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to just stop it with steps for condition and not grades.
Right, condition.
Yeah,
I
right.
don't want to
Yeah,
confuse
conditions.
grades and
No.
conditions.
And that's right.
Just on the side thing, because I know we talked mass appraising, but one of my thoughts was on a particular property, I go in it and it looks like it's in good condition,
Mhm.
okay? But it's, for a realtor's eyes, might be in good condition.
Oh, I
But it's
agree.
never been updated. I mean, you could, a 1988 house has never been updated for that 30-year period.
And I would consider that
But-
to be average for its
But you
age.
look at it and a realtor, oh, it's really good condition. You could eat off the floor and it's beautiful. It looks good inside, but I know you know, the next person is
Well,
getting,
I
getting the
agree.
dumpster going, so I don't know how your eyes work compared to
I
mine.
understand, and just as a quick explanation, we can go into this in greater detail.
It's more about an
over
80s
time.
house too, by the way, than anything else.
Right, but what I teach and what we try to do is judge condition by its age. So what could be average, when I look at a 1980s house that's original, I consider that to be average. I don't care how well it's been maintained. But when we take that 80s house and you obviously have a newer roof, okay, there's no stains on it, it's architectural shingles the whole bit, or you have a building permit, and then I look, it's now got vinyl siding and replacement windows, that's been upgraded. I consider that not an average house, it's a good house. So when I look at properties by condition, I am cognizant of its age to make that judgment. So as a result, you can get a 1980s house that's judged to be good condition and a 2005 house that's average, even though there's a very large difference between the actual ages. But I'd like to nail it down so that you're confident that the work product being returned to you and through Diane is what you are looking for. And with that, understanding that when certification time comes, you are going to perhaps adjust your depreciation tables. That's a separate issue.
Yeah.
What we're actually talking about is hard data. There are 2 bathrooms. It is 24 by 40. It is in X conditions. So I just needed to do that because I want you to be satisfied with the end product. Simple as that. So.
Fine.
Okay.
Would you like to take a 5-minute break so the camera can move when you're done with Mr. Bishop?
No, we're good.
Okay.
He needs to move the camera.
She can move the camera. I'll get
He
on
needs
the
to
way.
move a chair. That's all she has to
Thank
do.
you.
The camera can.
Certainly, if you have any questions, by all means, ask.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
Maybe
you.
taxpayers
Thank
unhappy
you so
for
much.
37 years.
Yeah, that's your motto?
Yes, yeah.
Motto?
I'd like to make it 38.
Thank you.
We'll leave this here.
Thank you.
Okay, back to open session. Back to Assessors meeting in order. We have a warrant of a 2018 motor vehicle excise commitment number 5 in the amount of $71,437.
And this commitment is going to be mailed out on the 21st, which I believe is Friday, and it's due back on October 22nd. And this is for any vehicles who have been more newly registered in our town within the last couple of months.
So my new car will generate a bill.
Mine too.
Okay, then you both will be on it.
Mine will as well.
So please endorse that so we can have the collector send you a bill.
Oh, great.
Oh, yes.
Bill Johnson, Piney Woods.
For assessors, excise staff?
Yep. It's this
So these are anyone who received an abatement
an
in the
abatement from
month.
August of 16, 17, and 18. Sorry. They got small abatements. We do need another pen. We're short.
You don't have one?
No, you keep stealing mine, so.
Do you have an
did I
extra
steal
bill?
yours?
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there's an extra one down there
It's
too.
like having the wrong fork and throwing the whole paper out.
And building permits for August.
So you should have that on
I
your...
don't have my screen. I don't have my password. I left it at work, so. Building permits.
You'll see my little notes at the top of the page. I think there was 2 dwellings and we're 9 year to date.
9 new dwellings for 2018. Probably the lowest in, I don't know how long. 8 years maybe? You have that on your screen. You're not marked, but
Okay.
you do have your building permits, so.
Oh,
2 new
addition
dwellings.
to it, yep.
Probably the last one in that neighborhood. Couple pools, some solar.
Lots of windows.
There are 4 solars, all of them over 20,000.
Wow.
The permit for Chipotle, so must mean they really are coming.
Across from,
Center
Across the
Square.
parking lot, yeah.
yeah.
Just one page right there.
A
Oh, no.
couple on the back.
I got you. Small things on the back. Okay, thank you. So 9 really is low. Any questions on building report, Bill?
No,
Okay, we got the LA3 sales report for August. The old value, new value, and sale price, of course.
So you have to keep in mind that we did just update our live database. So once the assessors approve these old to new values and the ratios, the assessment to sale ratio will change based on the new values. So this is still based, the old value
Yep.
is based on the prior fiscal year.
Got some above 1
Yes, we
for the
do.
first time in a while with that.
Mm-hmm.
The last one doesn't really count, but. The 101, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have some in the 8s.
I don't know the story on the 1.17 on page 2, and I'm
Maybe
not.
someone can help us with that.
Where are you?
So I think I saw that this was on the MLS, and then it was taken off the MLS and expired,
Maybe
and then
so.
2 months later
Oh,
it was sold.
You can talk about that later if
Yeah.
you like.
Absolutely.
You can maybe share the information after the meeting with me.
Yeah.
Thank you. I do send out the sales questionnaires, so I might also receive some additional information regarding any of the sales that are either kind of higher.
But the lower price homes have been in the 8s more than the higher price. So
Yep.
these are all making sense, somewhat.
Mhm.
Any questions on LA3, Bill?
no,
Marilyn,
Nope.
you read the screen all right?
Yep.
Okay. Diane, you're all set on that too?
I am.
Okay, now we have director's update.
So you may be aware that the DSL Gateway, the Bureau of Local Accounts, is going to be requiring each individual assessor to have their own username and password for the DLS Gateway system. You do have to follow up with the town clerk so they can get you registered on the DSL Gateway, issue you a password, and you're going to be required to remember your password. So
Yeah,
when
Marilyn.
it's time for us to go and submit the recap sheet, it's mandatory now that the assessors have to sign off on page 1 individually.
Okay.
I'm still able to I'm authorized, the board has authorized me to sign on their behalf, so I, at the present time, can sign for the LA4, LA13, LA15,
Okay.
the LA3 sales. It's when we're ready to submit the recap sheet. So page 1 of the recap is going to require individual passwords, and if the board would like, we can all sit at our computers together and do it at one time.
Is that different than the password I just got?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's another new password to remember. And you'll also have to sign off on, when we go for our tax classification hearing and there's a form that the town council has to sign
Yeah.
and the assessors have to sign. I believe it's the LA5. It could be the LA7. I always confuse which one is which. But that one you also have to sign individually. I did question our representative from the Bureau of Local Accounts and asked how the town council will have to do it because they're a much bigger board, and I'm very concerned because sometimes it's hard enough to have 3 people remember their password, but to have 10 people remember their password.
Well, I'll have the same password.
There you go. And they said that at the present time they're still going to take the town council's handwritten, uploaded onto the DSL
wow.
gateway.
Jeez.
So I guess they're starting with the assessors first. So you will have to work with the town clerk. I have made the town clerk aware of it. And it's going to be important that we do it sooner than later, because I would like to at least work with you to show you how to get on. So when push comes to shove, we know that your passwords work and we can get it taken care of when we're ready. Chapter land applications, the deadline is October 1st for the fiscal 2020 applications for 61A and 61B. At some meeting after October 1st, the board will sit down with all the applications and review.
They're coming in all right?
They are. With Carrie Ann, she has sent out reminder postcards and people have been coming in, trickling in. We will do as we always do and give a courtesy phone call if we find that at the end of the, the 30th, 29th, you haven't received it. We've reminded you once and here's the last time and the deadline is. So we're hoping everyone will get their information in. There's always stragglers who, they'll bring the application, but they forget to bring their gross sales, or they forget to bring their owner's rights and acknowledgement statements. So we're working hard to get all of it together so the board will be able to review and make a decision on each application soon after. There is an MAAO clerks meeting, and the topic is how to work collaboratively with your collector's office. Both Linda and Carrie Ann will be attending that meeting. I will be here covering the office. I have signed up for the 2-day event for the Visions National User Group. So that would be on October 4th and 5th. And the What's New in Municipal Law Seminar, which will be held in Holyoke on October 4th. I know Bill Johnston and Carrie Ann are both going to be attending that. In the interim, and I probably lost it in all of this paperwork, but we did just receive the fall conference, and I believe it's going to be held October 25th at the Public House. And one of the topics that they're going to be discussing is the new 2020 regulations regarding assessing utilities. I most likely will be attending that as well, because we now have a staff member who is also an MAA. In order to continue to maintain her certification, that would probably be a good one for her to attend. If there is a meeting or seminar that any board member feels that it is in their interest, please let me know ahead of time so we can get you registered. So that is what I had. As part of your information, I did also provide the email talking about the signing up with the DSL gateway and getting those passwords.
Right.
So,
I wrote it down, I'll do it.
okay. So that's what I had for open session. We also discussed our FY19 values. If there was anything else that the board felt that they needed to discuss any further, please feel free. If not, the rest of the items, which is appellate tax board, would be an executive session.
Yep. Any questions? Open session? Okay, I make a motion to go into executive session to discuss appellate tax board updates. And we will return to open session to record our votes. Take a roll call vote. Bill Johnson?
Yes.
Marilyn Gadini?
Yes.
Marty Grudgeon, yes.